The Pittsburgh Pirates won their first series in almost a month over the weekend. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as you heard that, it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day. And welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Make sure you go check out Monopoly Go. They're great people, and you can download the Monopoly Go app free on the App Store and Google Play. And Gary, it's nice because on a Monday morning for once, we actually have something positive to talk about for the first time in a couple weeks. The Pittsburgh Pirates won a series. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what happened. The month turned and everything kind of changed a little bit. And the feeling changed a little bit all of a sudden. Now, the Pirates, of course, Sunday come back from down 3-0, win 5-3, won 1-0 on Saturday. Obviously had the loss on Friday. But Gary, how are we feeling on this Monday morning now, coming off of a series win for the first time since I met you in person for the first time?
Yeah, maybe. Let's hope that didn't have anything to do with it, Ethan. I mean, I feel better. Obviously, you want to beat the teams that you should beat. Angels are an eminently beatable team they should beat. So, you like to see them maybe start to stack some wins here, feel good about themselves, start getting back to feeling like a team that could compete with some of the tougher competition out there. But I don't know. It hasn't been all that long since they split that series with Milwaukee, and I think Milwaukee's a very good team. So all in all, terrible stretch. Hopefully we're starting to come out of it. I think you're starting to for sure see O'Neal Cruz come out of it, and that might be he's arguably the single biggest differentiator you could possibly have in that lineup. If he's going, everything else will look better.
Yeah, and we've said that on this show quite a bit, that O'Neal Cruz is kind of that guy in the lineup who really keeps things going. And when he's going, this team is going. Now, we obviously know baseball's a sport where you have 9 individuals in the lineup. One guy can change a game pretty often. It can happen quite a bit, but we've even seen it with those mentioned Angels, that even Mike Trout hasn't been able to overcome some of the shortcomings of the LA Angels. But this is a Pirates team now that I think yesterday specifically, we saw O'Neal Cruz's impact on this team yesterday. When he hit that ball, obviously he thought it was out. I think a lot of people thought it was out of the stadium. I saw some people get kind of upset that he wasn't running the bases all that much. Well, I'll be honest with you, there was about 20,000 people that also thought that ball was over the fence like O'Neal Cruz did. And, he still gets the double out of it. Thankfully, Stallings fumbles the ball there and doesn't get Hayes in the rundown, because that was almost one of those moments where you're like, yep, they were just coming out of it, and then Stallings throws Hayes out at third, and it felt like that would have just taken the air out of everything. Instead, Tellez gets that short dribbler, and then it just kind of seemed like everything finally started to come back to them. Like, oh, we can hit the baseball now. Like, now we can actually get back into this mode. You saw Brian Reynolds get kind of back into it a little bit. Hayes get back into it a little bit. And I think the most convincing thing that I saw about yesterday too, Gary, was it was the people that you want it to be. We talked about that in the past too, where you want it to be players that are going to be here for a while. You don't want to be winning games because Yasmani Grandal is going 2 for 3 with a homer, or because Rowdy Tellez is 3 for 4 with 2 walks and a home run. You want it to be because Hayes, Cruz, Reynolds, Triolo, Williams even, and a lot of these guys who we know are going to be here for a while are the reason that they're winning.
Sure. And when you're not winning, you'll take any of those reasons, any of them at any time. And that's where we have been. I just think O'Neal Cruz in particular is the straw that stirs the drink. And, we said a while ago, Reynolds is a support player, like a good player, but he's not a guy that's going to carry an offense. And I think that's what we've seen. Even when he's going, it's not enough to drive that offense. He needs he and Hayes to be going at the same time so that there's impact. Well, Cruz is a guy that can solo take over on occasion. And I think the big thing we saw here with this cold stretch that I think we're finally coming out of now, we were to the point where you couldn't go 3 hitters in a row without getting to somebody that's just ice cold.
Mm-hmm.
They probably have enough guys that are warming to the task now where you can avoid that. So you're at least going to put some kind of a competitive approach together inning to inning. There was a stretch there where you didn't have a shot some innings. It was getting like to the point where you just could almost turn the TV off for a minute and come
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, it felt like you could almost go to the bathroom when you saw certain like guys come up. Like it would be due up and it would be Michael A. Taylor, Williams, and Davis, and you're like, what's gonna happen here?
Yeah, they
It
still
almost
have some. Oliveris is really, really bad right now. And
yeah.
I mean, I the series preview is up on Steel City Pirates, so go check it out. I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but Edward Oliveris, my goodness, his last 15, 160, 236, 280 slash line.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah, and speaking on that too, we've also seen now that the Pirates have made a couple of moves. We saw obviously Henry Davis go down for Yasmani Grandal. There's been a lot of chatter about the potential of a guy like Nick Gonzalez or Leo Piguero to come up, especially when this offense was struggling. And you look at those kind of guys who in AAA, they obviously have MLB time, but in AAA, they've done pretty good this year. And Oliveras, I think now with the way he's played over the past couple of weeks, is the clear roster casualty. Just because I don't see where else you really go to take anybody off the roster. I don't think that they're going to take Triolo or Williams off the roster for their glove. You're obviously not taking Hayes, Cruz, Taylor, Reynolds, or Sawinski off. Joe is too important as far as a first baseman and an outfielder goes. And Tellez, I don't think that they'd have the DFA Tellez if they sent him down. So I have been getting asked that question a lot. I do think that Oliveras would be the guy that they would have to send down just because they quite honestly don't have another choice. And if you also, which a topic we'll talk about later, I'll plug Steel City Pirates again in the second segment of today's show. These are not exactly easy things to decide on for the Pittsburgh Pirates anymore. This isn't just plug this guy, unplug this guy, and things are just sunshine and rainbows. And that's the kind of moves that a good team has to make. And I do think, and I do agree with you too, that yesterday specifically, I think we finally saw this team not fully exit that cold spell. I mean, they put up 5 runs on 9 hits and they looked a lot better. But I do think that we're starting to see the signs now, Gary, that they're coming out of it. And eventually I do think that they're going to have some sort of breakout again offensively.
I'm sure they'll have more ups and downs as the season goes on. It's going to be really hard, even as we get through this Angels series, to feel like anything's real. The Angels can't pitch. So, I mean, now they have a couple good starters that, like Anderson is pretty good. You remember him. He'll do well against the Pirates, I'm sure, and keep them tramped down for a while. But they can probably get rid of him in 5 innings and move on to that bullpen. I think, in all sincerity, they should hit against the Angels. They should build more momentum. Problem is, these are 2 of the worst pitching teams in the league that they faced here now. 3 if you want to count the A's, and they did nothing against them.
Mm-hmm.
So you really need to see them do it against some better competition, and you can only play who's in front of you. So it's not like I'm going to get mad the whole Angels series while they're hitting. It's just, I'm not going to believe it until I start to see it against some better competition.
Yeah, and that better competition is coming right around the corner, by the way, for a lot of you that may remember a certain stretch of the 2023 season last year where I was calling for something and didn't get it, and it kind of happened in that stretch. Ironically, I believe the exact same stretch in the exact same order of games, but we'll talk about that later. Paul Skenes made another start at AAA, his 7th on the year. And albeit it wasn't exactly what we've seen from Skenes throughout the year, could it almost be time for Skenes to come up We'll talk about that in just a moment. But before we do, folks, we're going to hear from LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Monopoly Go. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is LinkedIn.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial, and let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. Download the Monopoly Go app free on the App Store and Google Play. And we got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. Well, yeah, I did earlier, but there is so much more to talk about in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get, like unique stickers that you could trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, hilarious emojis for taunting friends, and cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. So make sure that you go download Monopoly Go, because there's always something fun to discover. And go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. And welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day, especially now that Ethan has been in PA for almost 3 weeks and is finally getting settled in. As you guys see now, starting to get the room a little bit more color and everything. And we already had one Steel City Pirates plug, so why not make it two? Right after the game, in the middle of the game yesterday, I was writing a story and wrapping up a story over at Steel City Pirates that was titled, "Is Paul Skenes' time in AAA Indianapolis coming to a close?" If you went and read it, it's very good. I'm going to hit some points on it on this show. So if you've read it already, you'll hear me kind of elaborate on some of those points. What I find interesting about the expectations that we've had for Skenes already is it's all been about checking boxes, Gary. That's what it's been about since the beginning of 2024. Last year, I know he got some action last year, but I'll be honest, folks, anything he did in Bradenton and Altoona was pretty much just, okay, we want to see what we got here. He gets to AAA, which surprised me at the beginning of the year. I won't even lie. I thought that he was going to start in AA Altoona just for a little bit and then move up. But we've already seen the Pirates have a willingness, much like they've said publicly about Jared Jones, to have somewhat of a pitch count for him and an innings count for him. But recently, before yesterday's start, he went 6 innings. Most he's went so far this year. And I think one of the bigger boxes that we all wanted to check, and the team especially wanted to check, happened yesterday. It was his first start off 4 days rest. That's going to be the expectation when he gets up here, because as you said on your Pirates fan forum, when somebody commented on it, Gary, the Pirates are not going to run a 6-man rotation. It's just not going to happen.
Nope.
Now, what's interesting is both of us have said that once he gets to 6 innings and goes to 4 days rest is when you can start thinking about a call-up here. But as I mentioned in that piece about a certain guy named Steven Strasburg pitched 122 1/3 innings before he ever debuted. But I also mentioned it's a different time period now of how prospects are handled. So what are your thoughts on where we're at with Skenes right now? And is he inching closer to that call-up time, or am I just in the loony bin right now?
I really think it could be any time now. I would I could go ahead and put dates on it at this point. It'll either be the 10th this week against the Cubbies, and if so, believe me, you'll know by like Wednesday because they're going to want it to be a sellout. I know a couple things for sure, and I've heard them, and they're sourced. If you want to go ahead and call it that, it will be at home. So, any thoughts that it's going to happen while they're on the road, go ahead and just erase them. It won't happen. Travis Williams will be very involved in this because, they want to start coordinating call-ups for players like this. So believe me, we'll know in advance. This won't be one that we find out morning of or something. Right now they have the 10th as TBA for their pitching. So, I mean, why might that be, right? If it doesn't happen then, you're looking at the 21st against the Giants. That literally is the next day he would fall. I would think you're probably looking at 2 more starts for him then, which could make some sense in AAA if you want him to like fully recover from that 4 days rest and get back on a schedule, or if you want him to come off a high note instead of a low note, if you want to call it that in that last outing.
A low note.
Well, then you probably be looking at the 21st. I think the bigger issue really is the GM probably doesn't really feel like there's a need. I mean, like, I'm saying that, and I know it sounds silly because he's probably better than 4 of the pitchers they have in their starting rotation, but you're not going to do anything with Martin Perez. He's here. He's a free agent. Bailey Falter's been okay. Even yesterday, 3 runs and 5+ innings. Not bad. It's what you want from him, right? Priester's just getting his sea legs. You're not going to do that to another number 1 pick, right?
No.
And, Keller's probably been performing the worst. I'm pretty sure he's safe. And bluntly, Paul Skenes got some work to do to live up to Jared Jones. So, yeah. I mean, like, I don't think they have to do it. They really shouldn't even feel pressured to do it right now. Pitching's not been their problem.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part of it, and that's a big point that I made too, is the only real solution that if he comes up on the 10th, let's just say in a perfect world, he comes up on the 10th. I don't know if that's exactly a perfect world, but I already called off the 10th because I thought that it might be a day. The only decision that they really have, I think, and it's a tough decision to make right now, is that you're going to have Keller, Perez, Jones, and Priester safe. Like, I think you made a great point. You cannot do that to Quinn Priester, a guy who, especially actually in his last couple starts, hasn't looked all that bad. He's actually looked pretty good. If
he
you
looks
ask
like
me.
a learning,
yeah,
young top prospect.
He actually kind of reminds me of what we saw Mitch Keller do in 2022 when he came back. He kind of started to figure things out. And Falter, for everything that he's doing great, and I see people just easily stick him in the bullpen, I just don't know if he's a bullpen guy. Is that a guy that you really want in your bullpen? And I mean, again, he's pitched well to start the year, but I don't know if I really want a guy who's high contact, saw a lot of barrels in that Rockies series as well yesterday. And I just don't know if you want that as a long relief arm. I think that's what makes Luis Ortiz such a good option back there, because Luis Ortiz has strikeout stuff. Bailey Falter doesn't have that strikeout stuff that you think about. Now his strikeout numbers are up because he's just pitching a lot better. But I don't see it as that simple, where it's just, oh yeah, you just move Falter to the bullpen and then you ditch somebody else like Josh Fleming. But as you mentioned on Pirates Fan Forum, Josh Fleming's been pretty damn important to this team. He's been eating a lot of innings.
It wouldn't be Josh Fleming. I mean, like I would think like Falter probably is going to wind up in the bullpen. No, I don't think it's the greatest profile for him. I do think he's a guy that everything has to be going absolutely perfect for in order for him to be successful. He's got to have the right kind of stretch. He's got to have the right kind of velocity. He's got to have the right kind of control. If he can do all that stuff in 3-4 inning spurts here and there, then he's a great long man to have in that bullpen. They don't really have when they're not using Luis Ortiz in that fashion. I think it might be Roansy Contreras' time here as far as like making the 40-man spot for Paul and making the pitching spot for Falter to move into the bullpen. Roansy Contreras doesn't fit what they're trying to do with them. They don't want to use him for more than an inning, and they can't keep using him at the back of games. So, and if your plan is, hey, we're going to get blown out a ton, make some changes then.
Yeah.
So I think Roansy Contreras is probably reaching his expiration date, sadly, and Bailey Falter has earned being on this team. So I would put him in the bullpen, and hopefully that translates to his performance there. And if not, hey, it's better than just outright cutting him in the first place. But you can't deny somebody like Paul Skenes. You have a talent like that. He at some point has to trump whatever you think you have going on.
Yeah, and I also find it interesting too that they don't have that long relief arm option really that they've been using. If Balzer can find a way to make that a very good spot for him and make that something that he's good at, folks, that's going to help a lot. Because if he goes in there and performs, what have we been hearing that the Pirates want to do with Paul Skenes and Jared Jones? They want to limit these guys' innings so that they're available later in the year. Imagine having a pretty good long relief option to where Jones and Skenes only have to go a max of 5 innings if they have to. And you could save their arm for a couple innings every now and then and hand it off to a guy like Bailey Falter or hand it off to a guy like a Luis Ortiz, even though they're not using him in that fashion.
Or
that's a big thing.
Another thing you can do is you can take a day where you would have those 4-day starts that have physically shown evidence that they slowed down Paul Skenes and Jared Jones. Both of them had a drop in velocity. Both of them had a drop in effectiveness. Both of them had, shorter outings. Jared Jones didn't pay with the effectiveness until the next start afterwards, trying to recover from it.
Mm-hmm.
So you do see a little bit of evidence that youngsters do struggle with that a bit. So if you wanted to manage it when you have a long stretch of games, you could just say, how they called the bullpen game like a week ago or so. Well, now if you call bullpen game, you're not just going with all. You can go Bailey Falter. Hey Bailey, give me 4 innings today.
Yeah, just 4 innings. You don't even have to do anything crazy. You
get the spot start today instead of coming in to save somebody. That's what you do. And he comes out and gives you 4 innings, and then you go to Josh Fleming, who can give you 3. And and then you can get through without crushing your bullpen because you've got somebody experienced with a little bit more stretch there. And I liked your point about some of the younger guys like Jones. Maybe you have a shorter outing here today and Bailey Falter comes in for you, or Skenes, maybe you have a shorter outing here and save some innings here and there. I like that kind of thought process, and that may be how they play it. It's going to be interesting to see, Ethan. We've never seen anything like this.
No. So. And what's interesting too is I always like making points down the line. Folks, have fun in 2025 trying to find Johan Oviedo a roster spot. Seriously, have fun trying to find him a spot in the rotation next year. Really do, because it's going to be very difficult to find him that spot. And I find this interesting because, folks, a lot of people are talking about this right now. This is just going to continuously happen for the Pirates for a while. You have Solometo, you have Chandler. After that, you have Thomas Harrington, Xander Muth, a lot of these guys that are going to be those top pitching prospects that you keep hearing about. This is something they're going to have to continuously deal with. And right now, I mean, it's a decision they're going to have to make at some point, because
if you get to that point and they haven't had a bunch of injuries, then a lot has gone right for this team already. I don't want to count chickens, and I'm not going to look down to single A and start talking about that depth and what's going to happen in 2028. Mm-hmm. I'm facing right now, Paul Skenes is generational. Jared Jones is generational. You have to have them both in your rotation. that's going to cause you to drop somebody who's performing.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Sorry.
And it heightens the expectations for Skenes even more. I mean, if you really want to like think about it that way, taking Falter out of the rotation, who's done well, if Skenes comes in and doesn't perform well, then there's going to be some questions that are asked. Now, obviously, I do think that to the fans, at least, Paul Skenes is going to be one of those guys. It's going to be very difficult to turn on him if he does anything really bad. But I would also caution before he comes up, and this is something I'll say when he eventually does, don't expect him to come up here and just throw heaters past everybody like he does in the minors. It's not going to happen. Jones is doing a fine job at it, but even he has given up the occasional home run in almost every single start that he's made.
I would expect that to be the main form of offense against Paul Skenes.
Yeah.
His guys, getting a good swing off on a ball and taking it deep. Paul has less movement than Jared Jones. He can't get away with throwing those fastballs right down the heart of the plate over and over again. And you'll see that. I mean, so you'll see he's a different type of pitcher. I know it's one thing to watch it on the MILB app and everything, and they've made a lot of them free, and that's cool. But you're not really seeing it. Just trust me, the camera angle is fooling you. You're not seeing what you think you're seeing. Wait till he gets up here. You'll see he's a different pitcher. It really is. And he's craftier than you think too.
Yeah, and I also think too that he's going to just have an aura that is just going to light that place up whenever he gets there, and hopefully I'll be there. But we do have a fun week ahead of Pirates baseball. Obviously, 2-3 game series with an off day in the middle. But before we wrap up today's show and talk about that, I want to talk about Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance is behind every great investor. And by the way, if you like investing, make sure you download it, because for more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or are looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com, is behind every great investor, and go invest today. And all right, folks, welcome back to the third and final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates. Again, as mentioned earlier, go check out the Angels versus Pirates series preview on Steel City Pirates. It's a very nicely written piece that I read this morning before I got on the show. And this Angels team, very interesting. I guess the Pirates right now are just playing teams that have a bunch of former Pirates on them because we got to see Jacob Stallings and Elias Diaz. I believe they had another former Pirate on the Rockies too that I remember seeing. I don't remember who it was, but I remember vaguely seeing it. Nick Mears, that's who it was. This series, you get Tyler Anderson tonight at 6:40 against Mitch Keller. Obviously, Pirates, I think, were a big reason why Tyler Anderson is still in the spot in his career that he's in with that reclamation project that they had with him a couple years ago. And oddly enough, I know this will make some people happy. Cole Tucker is up on this team and will likely be at PNC Park with the Los Angeles Angels, who got some bad news last week. I just think bad news for baseball, period, that Mike Trout is going to have knee surgery. Had a pretty good start to the year, 10 home runs, 14 RBIs. The guy just cannot stay healthy, and it sucks for baseball when he's not healthy because he's just such a phenomenal player. But looking at this series from the standpoint of without Trout, I even think with him, the Pirates should win this series. Now that he's not there, as you mentioned earlier, this is a team that they should go in and beat, and a team that they should really hit on a little bit as well.
They should. I mean, again, I think tonight's probably the toughest matchup. Tyler Anderson can shut people down, has shut people down. His win-loss record is not reflective of what he's done. I mean, he's a good pitcher. It's really about how long it takes them to get him out of this game, I think, and into the bullpen. This is one of those instances where you kind of do want them to pull the Andy Haynes and give you the long extended at bats and get rid of a guy. Tyler Anderson can take them 7 if they're not careful. So let's see, because part of coming out of this slump has been them trying to be a little more aggressive. So if they have to sacrifice tonight in order to not get themselves out of that mindset, fine by me.
Yeah.
But this is the toughest game tonight, Monday night.
I agree as well. I mean, you look at the pitching matchup for Tuesday, it's Patrick Sandoval. Has not had a great year at all. Quinn Priester, who we mentioned earlier, down to a 3.31 ERA. That's very interesting that I mentioned that, in my opinion, because a lot of people probably think it's a lot higher. And then you get Soriano versus Perez on Wednesday. Obviously, that early afternoon game. It'll be a 9:35 local start for the Los Angeles Angels on Wednesday. Those are those typical, usually the East Coast team wins those ones from my history of watching baseball. But, oh God, it just even hurts to say that it starts this week. After the Angels series, we all remember last year, I mentioned it a lot, that we get the 9 straight again against the Cubs and the Brewers. It starts this weekend. As you mentioned, there are no pitchers that are assigned to that series yet. It's interesting because you mentioned already that with this start, I feel like a lot of people have been clouded a little bit in their judgment of this team. They split with the Brewers already. If they can go into that 9-game stretch and find a way to win 5 out of 9 games, that's all I'm asking. 5 out of the 9. I think you'd be pretty satisfied with a 7-6 divisional record, especially when it's coming against the 2 teams that are in the top of the division. That's looking way ahead, but I just hope that they don't have happen to them what happened last year, because it really derailed their entire year last year when it happened.
There's nothing to be afraid of with these teams. I mean, the Brewers, I think they're probably the best hitting team in the division. But outside of
very
Freddie,
odd to say with the historical history of the Brewers the last couple years.
Yeah, and I would say Freddie Peralta, good top of the line pitcher for real. The Cubs, they can probably pitch a little bit better than anybody but the Pirates. And I truly think that that's their bread and butter. They have some offense too. Morel's a good player and everything. There's nobody that frightens you. Bellinger isn't in right now. He's hurt and he wasn't playing well anyway. Pete Crow Armstrong's here, but I'm not sure he's a type of player that strikes fear into you. He's more of a component, right now as he stands in his career. So, I mean, really, you're going to get pitched in one, you're going to get hit in the other, and the Pirates should be equipped to hang in those games, really, if their offense isn't playing like a putrid bag of crap. If they're playing normally, they should be in every contest. And the Reds are falling off. You see that. And the Cardinals are exactly what I said. The devil magic's over.
Yeah, and this division, again, even you mentioning the Cardinals, it's still very early in the year. Even the Cardinals are only 5.5 out. If the Pirates go into that stretch and really make noise, which I do think they can, as you said, if they just play the brand of baseball that's the best brand of baseball for them, that 5 games back for the Pirates could turn into 2 or 3 very fast. And I think it's very interesting that we get to see that. It's going to be yet again another big part of the season, I think, with those 9 straight games against the division. And we'll see what happens. But folks, happy Monday. Thank you for tuning into the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. Make sure you follow me down there at MVP_Ethan. Gary, what do you got going on this week outside of everything else that you usually do?
Well, first of all, follow us on Twitter at Steel_Pirates. That's how you get Steel City Pirates. 5 Thoughts of 5 will be out. this week. Special episode of the Pirates Fan Forum. Thursday at 3:00. We're going to have Chad Hermanson on, former number one pick for the Pirates. He's got a lot of nice insights on mental strength and basically what it's like to be a phenom coming up to the majors and how effective a hitting coach can be in altering your career path.
Yeah, and that's going to be a wonderful show. I will definitely try to tune into that unless I'm working. And even if I am working, I'll listen to it later in the day. And all of you should do that. Follow this show, follow Gary's show, follow this show everywhere you can find it, YouTube and all your audio platforms. It's free and available to you. So why not? That's why you listen to the ads. Folks, thank you so much for having me, as always, on your feeds. You're on my TV. You're on everything. Apparently, I had people literally tell me that I'm on their TV, which makes me a little weird. But guys, thank you. Have a beautiful Monday. We'll see you on the flip side.